Welcome, Slayer the Alchemist, and welcome to another edition of Rank 'em If You Got 'em. This is where I rank the albums from an artist that I own. You may say, well, why don't you just rank all of them? I'm doing this because I have more fun just listening to the vinyl records, and sometimes it's daunting. Some of these bands have a lot of albums. So the band that I'm going to be ranking today is Dokken, and I own 4 of their albums on vinyl. This is all the stuff that they put out in the 80s. Their first album, Breaking the Chains. Their second album, Tooth and Nail. Their third album, Underlock and Key. And their fourth album, Back for the Attack. I also have the Beast from the East, I believe it's called, live album. This is a really good live album. I don't remember what the episode was. I think it was bands that should release live records, and I commented how a lot of the hair metal bands don't have, the LA glam bands don't have live albums, but this is an excellent live album. When I think of Dokken, what immediately comes to mind is George Lynch and Don Dokken. Don's voice, he has kind of a unique voice. I wouldn't call him an aggressive singer. He has kind of a lighter tenor type voice, lends itself to the more poppy, melodic side of the band. And George is this very much kind of an LA fastest gun in town type of guitar guy. Very, very unique guitar tone. When I think of George's guitar tone, it's very mid-rangey. Like, there's not a lot of bass on it. There's not a lot of treble. It's just very like, the EQ is probably like this in the middle there, accentuating the mid-range. And it's a very unique sound. And he's a very unique player when his riffs are kind of quirky and strange, the way he sort of throws his riffs together. His soloing is very unique. He's not a neoclassical player or anything. He's a blues-based Eddie Van Halen kind of player, but he sort of twists it around and twists the blues licks around and really does his own thing with it. And he really has his own unique sound. He has a ton of technique, and he just has a really strong individual voice. So I've always loved Dokken for sort of that contrast between George, the guitar hero with the heavy riffs and everything, and Don, who's got the more melodic voice and brings that sort of melodic sense to the band. All right, so at number 4 for me is going to be their first album, Breaking the Chains. This came out, it was originally released in Europe in 1981. It was re-released and remixed for the US in 83. Produced by Michael Wagner and Dokken. The production on it is okay. Honestly, I've never heard the production of the original version. As I talk about the songs in this record, I think the production drags this album down a little bit. The drums don't have a lot of punch to them. The guitar at times sounds good, and then there's other times where it just seems to lack some of the balls that George would have on the later records. You got Don, you got George, Mick Brown on drums, who's going to be on all these records. And on this particular album, you have Juan Crucier on bass, who would go on to be with Rat. But there is some really good stuff on here. I love Breaking the Chains. I think that's a great song and a really great example of sort of the Dokken sound, which is just very melodic, very catchy chorus, but the main riff is real heavy, real power chordy, and everything chugging off the open strings. So that's really cool. In the middle, the production, again, this is where the production, it sort of softens up the sound a little bit to me, especially the drums. The drums kind of lack, a real punch to them from here. But it's a great solo and a great guitar sound. Felony and I Can't See You, maybe they're a little bit too popish for me. Live to Rock, Rock to Live. I don't like that title. I think it's pretty lame, but it's a pretty cool driving song. Night Rider is great heavy dark main riff. Loses a little bit of weight because of the production again. What is this? Young Girls. Main riff sounds like Looks That Kill. That's kind of interesting. The verse and chorus are very melodic. Kind of in some ways, again, if this came out in 81, this is very early in the whole glam LA type of thing, even though Don had to go over to Germany to record this. But he's sort of foreshadowing this sound that you're going to get out of the LA sound, which is sort of this combination of heavy guitar, metal-like guitar, and metal light guitar, and the melodic vocals, the catchy choruses, everything. And then probably my favorite thing on here is Paris is Burning, which is live. Fantastic burning rocker. George starts off with this unaccompanied guitar solo. He just sounds fantastic, so cool. And he's just all over this song. Little guitar fills, the guitar solo and everything. There's just a ton of energy in it. But it comes in at 4 for me. The production sabotages a little bit for me. And some of the songs like Felony, I Can't See You, In the Middle, I just don't care for them as much. All right. Number 3. I'd also say, too, that Breaking the Chains, it kind of foreshadows a little bit what's going to come with the whole LA glam thing. All right, number 3 for me is Back for the Attack. This is 1987, produced by Neil Cornyn. This follows up Underlock and Key, which was a huge success for them. They had a lot of hits on that, were all over MTV. So this is kind of the follow-up to that. And it suffers a little bit. It kind of sounds like a sophomore Jinx, even though it's their 3rd record. Because it sounds like they're sort of forcing it a little bit. They're trying to recreate some of the stuff from Underlock and Key and Tooth and Nail. And although there isn't anything necessarily wrong with a lot of these songs, they're just not as catchy. They just don't grab you. The record's long. It is a 60-minute album, which for those who know vinyl, that's like 30 minutes aside on this. It's just crazy. They could have easily have cut out some of these songs and it would have been a lot more effective, because the stuff that's good on here is really, really good. Like Kiss of Death is awesome. One of George's coolest, like kind of signature main riffs. I love it. Fantastic guitar playing all over it. I love that little single note melody plays as the song is going like do 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 thing as the song goes out. That's just great. Heaven Sent is a great one, heavy and bluesy. Mr. Scary, I absolutely love that. Instrumental song is sort of like George's Eruption, if you will. It's his feature number. He's all over it. Fantastic licks, his unique sound, his unique playing, his unique soloing, his unique riffing. It's just great. I love it. Let's see here. I also love the toms and Mr. Scary. Do 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 do. I think that's really cool. Burning Like a Flame is great. Catchy, kind of got a Just Got Lucky vibe to it. Dream Warriors, that was with the movie soundtrack. Fantastic, a great, super fit, great chorus, sing-along chorus. The main riff in it is really killer. But then there's a bunch of stuff that's just kind of like, Prisoner is an okay song. It's a little too glam, LA sounding for me. Night by Night, it's a heavy riff. The chorus is good, but it just sounds kind of formulaic. It sounds almost predictable at this point. What else here? Lost Behind the Wall, Stop Fighting for Love, Cry of the Gypsy, and Sleepless Night. The second side of this record really drags this album down. And those 4 songs are all kind of boring. They're a little generic. They're not terrible, but they're just lacking something. And that really drags this album down for him. And I kind of struggled with either putting this last or Breaking the Chains, but the good songs on here are really, really good. And again, that's the side 1 of this album, really kicks butt. It's a long record. If they had dropped just a couple of these songs, it would be an even stronger record. Okay, number 2 is going to be Under Lock and Key. What year is this? I didn't write it down. I think it's 86. I really like the production on this. As you can guess what my number 1 is going to be. Sometimes I find like you can't hear the bass very well. Jeff Pilson, I forgot to mention that Jeff Pilson comes into the band after the first record. He's a great background vocalist. He's a great bass player too, but sometimes his bass gets lost, but it sounds good on here. This is probably my favorite from a production standpoint. Neil Kernon and Michael Wagner, a bit more bass, just a bigger sound to the whole thing. Practically every song on here is great. Unchain the Night, great chorus, the very cool main riff, The Hunter, nice straight ahead rock kind of feel to it, but it's got this sort of weird, strange riff. George has this way of sort of turning what could sound like a really just sort of stock hard rock song, but he twists the riffs around to make them really interesting. In My Dreams, super catchy chorus, all those background vocals, fantastic. Good blend of melody and heaviness. Again, this is what when Dokken is really firing on all cylinders. You get those heavy riffs from George, but you get those great sort of sweet melodies from Don. Slipping Away, maybe it's a bit sappy, but I do like those acoustic guitars in it. Lightning Strikes is great, high energy, nice fast one. Kind of reminds me of Paris is Burning. It's Not Love. I love the feel on this one. It's heavy. It's slow. The main riff is real chunky. The way George is like playing those lower riffs and everything. Jaded Heart, good moody ballad. I like that one. Don't Lie to Me is maybe the only one that I kind of feel is kind of filler on here. Same with Will the Sunrise. The verse is a little generic for me, but the chorus is pretty decent. Till the Living End, it's a nice driving rocker number. The guitar feels really cool and it's got a good solo, but it does sort of run out of steam a little bit here towards the end of this record. It was a little disappointing. That's why at number one for me is from 1984, Tooth and Nail. Tom Worman, Roy Thomas Baker produced. Yeah, I've heard stories about how there were all these problems and Tom Worman left and I think Roy Thomas Baker came in or something or the reverse of that. I mean, at this point, the band, they were already fighting, and the relationship between George and Don, I guess, was always volatile, and it's pretty much like right from the beginning. But this comes in at number one for me because all the songs are great. It's probably the most kind of straight ahead metal album that they have. Without Warning, very cool, almost classical sounding intro. Tooth and Nail is just awesome. It's driving. That riff is totally killer. George's guitar solo in it is just amazing, like the finger tapping and everything. Tooth and Nail, like I said, that's a great song. Just Got Lucky. I love Just Got Lucky. It's very melodic and poppy, but that little intro there and the way the chords descend, it's just kind of this strange chord progression. And I just think it's great. The guitar melody really sells it here. The guitar solo is great. Heartless Heart is really cool. Don't Close Your Eyes. I love the energy on that one. When Heaven Comes Down, that's another one of these like kind of slow chugging, great chorus to it, really heavy. Into the Fire is amazing. I love that. I love the chorus in that. I love the acoustic guitars and the dynamic, the way the verses drop down. Bullets to Spare is fun. Alone Again, maybe I've heard it too many times, but it's a great ballad. Fantastic solo from George. That video is just great. It's one of the early metal band doing a ballad, clips of them on stage, clips of them backstage on the tour bus, that kind of thing. You know, Motley Crue would do that with Home Sweet Home. And Turn on the Action is a burner. It just takes the album out on all kinds of energy. And the production on this, the bass is a little bit lost on here for me, but there is a certain kind of vibe to it, a little bit of reverb or something that gives this a really cool, slightly darker feel to it, which I do appreciate. Wish there was a little bit more bass guitar presence on it, but the songs are just great. I love the heaviness factor on Tooth and Nail, so that comes in at number one for me. So number one, Tooth and Nail. Number two, Underlock and Key. Just sort of runs out of gas a little towards the end for me. Back for the Attack. Too much filler on here for me, but the good stuff that's good is really good. And Breaking the Chains, shows the potential with some of the songs on here. Paris is Burning, Breaking the Chains, some of the other ones, but the production really drags it down, and there's some stuff that just doesn't sound like they've totally found the formula yet. All right, so there you go. There's my ranking of Rank Them If You Got Them, the Dokken albums that I own. Let me know what you think of my ranking. Dokken would sort of take a break there, and they would come back in the 90s. George is sort of a reunion. And then it was just a real jumble, people coming in and out of the band. But this is the classic era, the 80s era here, the classic albums. Let me know what you think of my ranking. How would you rank them? Till we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.